Hi, this is Digital Beersborn, and I hope you're ready for more AP Art history. We're going to continue our look at the indigenous Americas. We're focusing on South America, really specifically on Peru. The last piece we looked at, the city of Cusco, was built by the Incan Empire. We're going to continue to look at the Incan culture with this next piece called the T'oqapu Tunic. So let's start by taking a look at the content. What we see here is a tunic, and a tunic is an article of clothing that's worn as a loose shirt. Imagine like a poncho. If you look up in the top of this image, you'll see a slit here in the center of the textile. That's where the head would go through, so the fabric would lay flat in both the front and the back of the wearer's body, and then their arms would be free on the sides. This tunic is covered in small square patterns. These are called t'oqapu. And t'oqapu are symbolic representations in the Incan culture of someone's rank or position or job or their city of origin, perhaps. Anything that represents a specific group's identity within the larger Incan Empire is symbolized by a t'oqapu. So on your tunic, you would have a pattern woven into it so that people, when meeting you, would know perhaps what your job is or where you're from. That t'oqapu in the center, for example, with the black and white checkerboard, that is something that would only be woven into the tunics of somebody that was in the military. So if you met someone with that t'oqapu, you would know that they're military. Or, for example, hypothetically, maybe the t'oqapu on the right could only be worn by somebody that was from a specific geographic region of the Incan Empire. And only those people could wear a tunic with that pattern woven into it. So there's a number of different t'oqapu, each one representing a different identity or group within the Incan culture. Now, this tunic is called the all T'oqapu tunic because it has every t'oqapu on it. Every potential t'oqapu is on this single tunic. And that's super rare. That's not something you would commonly see because nobody could have every rank in every position and be from every part of the empire. So a unique tunic in that it contains all t'oqapu. Now the context for this, we're looking at something that's made by the Incan. And for the Incan, textiles like this, woven pieces of fabric, were incredibly valuable, more valuable than gold. And we talked about gold's use in the Coricancha in the city of Cusco. So they valued gold, but a textile like this would be even more prized. A really fine textile like this one would be woven by a specific group of women. Women were seen as the sole weavers of an important textile like this one. And the women would live in seclusion, dedicating their lives to the craft of weaving. It would be an incredible amount of work, not just to weave it, but to collect the dyes to dye the fabric, to collect the materials to make the wool itself. All of it took time and resources and money, making it an extremely powerful, extremely valuable object within the society. Now for the form, there's two things I think are worth pointing out. One is that it's very abstract. If we think about the Incan maize cob that we looked at in the city of Cusco, it was very representational. It falls very far on our representational side of that spectrum because it's very true in its depiction to the way corn actually looks in nature. The t'oqapu, however, fall very far on the abstraction side. There's very little, if anything, within the patterns themselves that represent something from nature. They're abstract designs that are symbolic representations of somebody's status or position within the society. The second thing I think worth noting is what it's made out of. There are two different materials that are woven together to create the yarn that's used to weave these fabrics. One of them is cotton. Cotton grows on the more coastal, low-lying parts of the Incan Empire. So they would collect the cotton from the coast. And they would mix that cotton with wool that's taken from animals like this, an alpaca or a llama. The fur of a llama or an alpaca would be shaved and woven into wool. These alpacas are found in the more high mountainous regions of the Incan Empire. So by combining both of those materials, it represents a combination of resources from across the empire. Now that combination, that wool, is then dyed. And if you look, the most prominent color in the t'oqapu is red. Now red dye was very hard to come by. The red dye that we're looking at here is something specific called cochineal red. And cochineal red is made out of crushing up cochineal beetles, these tiny little bugs that when you grind up their bodies have this really intense bright red pigment. Here's a picture of somebody that has squished a cochineal bug on a cactus, and you can see how intense that red pigment is. But the thing is, those beetles are tiny. To make enough cochineal dye, to dye something like the T'oqapu Tunic, it would take thousands of cochineal beetles. So people would have to be out there hunting for tiny insects for hours or perhaps days to get enough dye for the T'oqapu Tunic. What's crazy, and this is not important for your notes, but a lot of dyes that are used in food and makeup and stuff today is still made out of crushed up beetles. If you look at ingredients, like for example, this Starbucks, whatever it is, you'll see cochineal extract right there in the middle. That means that the red dye that's used for this drink is made out of crushed up cochineal beetle. A lot of times they've changed the name to carmine. If you look at a lot of makeup, like carmine red lipstick is actually cochineal beetle that's ground up to make that pigment. So a lot of the things you eat and stuff you're putting on your lips might actually be crushed up beetle. But anyway, let's talk about the function of the T'oqapu Tunic. So because it represents materials from different parts of the empire, and because it represents materials that are extremely valuable, like the dye itself, and because it depicts representations of all different classes and all different people within the empire, this is a tunic that could only be worn by an Incan emperor. The emperor is the only person that would have the resources to own a tunic of this status, and he's the only person that would have the right to have a T'oqapu of all potential parts of the population. As the emperor, he is every job, he is every role. He represents the entirety of the empire from top to bottom. So the function of this is a status symbol to be worn specifically by the emperor of the Incan Empire.